Hello everyone. So today we will discuss the assignment guidance on how to do the assignment for the Introduction to Statistics module. So we have already covered the following learning outcomes, which include to understand how data and statistics are used to support conclusions and decision making, to understand how to use basic numerical and graphical techniques, to use probability, sampling, and probability distribution, and how to use correlation and regression. So first of all, we look into the assignment format. So this is the assignment information in which you are working with a small business advisory service and you have been asked to prepare materials for an introduction to statistics day to introduce small business leaders and managers to the statistics they may need to interpret or use in their business. You may use calculated examples as part of your materials to illustrate the use. So the assignment, it basically comprises of a PowerPoint presentation and handouts. So the first task is the presentation and speaker notes. So basically you have to include the presentation and also provide the supporting speaker notes. So in the first task, you should prepare a presentation on how data and statistics are used to support conclusions and decision making, and on the use of sampling techniques in statistics. So this should contain how data and statistics are used to support conclusions and decision making, and how they may be misused to influence decisions or perception. So this one you can prepare a limit to 2 slides maximum. However, there is no limit on the speaker notes that you may want to present. Then the second point it should cover is the importance of validating sources of data and statistics. So this also you can limit to maximum 2 slides. Why I'm providing the limit is because it will be easier for you to bring in concise and compact information which demonstrates your understanding towards the relevant course modules. So the third one you should cover is to explain the concept of sampling and different sampling techniques, including an example of how a suitable sample size and technique might be selected for a specific context. So here you can use 3 slides. So here in this you may need to explain sampling, its types and examples of each type of sampling. And you should also discuss briefly about the sample size. Now the fourth one is explain how a random sample is selected using tables or a random number generator. So you can explain the brief concepts. Remember that you should cite the sources as it is required, and that shows that you have done some research work and also promotes academic integrity. So now coming back to the task in the presentation, explain how a random sample is selected using tables or a random number generator. So here also you can limit the description to maximum 2 slides. Now, if you want to achieve merit and distinction, you need to also include the following. So you use an example to explain how data and statistics are used to influence public perception. So here there is no limit on slide. Remember, if you remember from the sessions we had done on something related to climate change and other examples also we had considered. So you can also include other examples to explain how data and statistics are used to influence public perception. So that will explain your understanding towards the topic, and it will also lead to merit and distinction criteria. The second one you need to achieve is to use an example to show an analysis of data and statistics used to influence public perception and the sources. So again, for this, there is no limit on the number of slides. And for your chosen example, you also need to give a justification of the sampling technique and the sample size chosen. So this is for task 1 if you want to achieve merit and distinction. So you have to cover all these three topics as highlighted here. So the task 2 is the handout, where you have to prepare a handout. So I will explain you the details. So in this, you are required to prepare a handout about basic numerical and graphical techniques. So handout, it could be like you have to do in Microsoft Word. So the first one is to explain the use of measures of central tendency and spread, such as range, interquartile range, percentiles, outliers, variance, standard deviation, and what they represent. So you have to explain each of these measures with maximum 100 words for each. Then you have to use different examples to explain how data is presented in a suitable diagrammatical and graphical formats, including the features required for presentation. So you can give examples of presentation of data in diagrammatical and graphical formats. So it is whenever you are working on assignment, it is always important to give examples so that it demonstrates that you have understood the concept and you have also applied the concept. So next, moving on. The third one is to give an interpretation of different graphical diagrammatical representation of data from published sources. So here you have to provide an interpretation of the graphical representation. So for each of them, you can use a limit of maximum 100 words just to limit the volume of the assignment. And for merit and distinction criteria, you need to include, for the examples of published graphs or diagrams, justify the graphical representation used, saying why it is appropriate. So if you have used a pie chart, you have to say why it is appropriate. If you have used a bar chart, you have to say why it is appropriate. If you have used any other form of chart, then again, you have to justify the selection of the chart. So basically, why have you chosen that type of chart? So you may be wondering what is published sources. So published sources may include news articles, journals, or internal business or organizational example. Also, it may include data from government publications, market reports, trade reports. So those data you can use, for example, the GDP growth of a country, the inflation in the last 10 years. So you can use these data and you can give an interpretation of the graphical representation. The task 3 again is a handout. So here you are required to prepare a handout about probability and probability distributions, that why and when probability is a useful statistical concept. So again, you can limit this to maximum 100 words. Then you have to explain how to calculate, interpret, and compare probabilities, so that you can limit up to maximum 250 words. So remember, when you should be very clear when you are working on the assignment. Like if it asks for explanation, you have to explain. If it asks for analysis, you have to analyze it. Then the third one is to identify use of Bayes theorem. So we had covered the concept of Bayes theorem. So here you can explain the Bayes theorem and where it is used. So again, you can limit this section to maximum 100 words. Then describes the general properties of probability distributions. So you can explain the properties of probability distributions in maximum of 100 words. Then continuing with this, you have to explain when the binomial distribution may be appropriate in real world situations and how binomial probabilities are calculated. So here, it is better if you explain this with an example and limit this discussion to a maximum of 200 words. Then the third task, the third one is, the last one is actually explain the use of normal distribution and how it can be applied in real world situations using examples. So this again, you have to use explanation. So explanation, you can basically define the concept and explain its use. So this section you can limit to maximum 200 words. Now, if you want to achieve merit and distinction, you need to include an example of application of Bayes theorem. So it is not difficult. You have to research it on internet, or you can go through the books, or you can go through the journals. So it is not difficult to find out. And if you have understood the concept, you can also like provide your own example. So here you have no limit on word count. And then you compare the properties of binomial and normal distributions with possible examples. So in this section, you can limit it to maximum 500 words. So this was task 3, which you have to submit in the form of handout. Now task 4 is again a handout, where you are required to prepare a handout about correlation and regression that explains the concept of correlation and regression analysis. So you can use approximately 100 words for each explanation of each of the concept. And then the second section is explains using examples how to calculate and interpret Pearson and Spearman correlation. So remember, you have to cover these two specific correlation coefficients and outlines when to use them. Remember, I think we had discussed Pearson correlation is used in a linear distribution, Spearman is used in a non-linear distribution. You can go through the concepts once again, and then you can explain using the different examples. So this section you can limit to maximum 500 words. So that is all about the this module specific assignment. So the general guidelines which can be helpful for preparing an assignment is read the task carefully. That means you need to focus on the details. You need to understand what are the command verbs. For example, it is explain. If it is explain, define, describe, you can use a limit of 70 to 100 words. If it is to assess, examine, clarify, or analyze, it could be 100 to 125 words. And compare, contrast, and critically analyze, it is 150 to 200 words. So this is a general guideline. Although if you want to explain more, you can always go for higher word count. Then Harvard referencing. The referencing need to be Harvard standard, that is author, date, style. And you need to keep a check on the word count. You need not present like a 50-page assignment. It should be well concise, and it should demonstrate that you have understood the concepts. So you can read the ebooks and journals on Moodle. If you have any queries, you can send a mail to learner work, and the submission of assignment is to be done at learner work. And assignment submission is after 2 weeks of completion of units and its delivery. And if you have any more questions, you can always mail me at this email ID. So with this, we conclude this session as well as the module. All the best, and the assignment deadline is 2 weeks from today. So I hope you have understood the concepts and you will work well on the assignment. Thank you.